Well, hello. Welcome to the Creative Writing Life podcast, where we talk with writers from all mediums and genres about themselves, their work, and advice they have for writers. I'm your host, Paul Zeidman, and my guest today is screenwriter, author, and brand strategist, Brian Fitzpatrick. Brian, he is a former guest of the show. Brian, welcome back to the Creative Writing Life podcast.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Paul. I'm really excited to be here I think this is my third time.
You know what? I think you're right. The last, because I know we've talked about your screenplays and we've also talked about just working as an author. And today, this is a bit of a different approach for the show. Usually we talk to a writer about their project, but what we're going to be focusing on today is for you, the listener or viewer, as a writer, how you can get those projects ready for the upcoming year, 2025. Just kind of a heads up, we are recording this mid-December, and so this will probably be posting right around Christmas Eve, and we've got a special offer to mention later on. That's all Brian's forte. We'll get into that. But
Right.
as viewers and listeners are familiar, we like to start things off talking about anything we may have read or watched lately. Did we like it? Did we hate it? We're kind of like, I don't ever want to see that again. I'll go first just to give Brian a few minutes to collect his thoughts. Um, Over the weekend, I was supposed to go to my local cinema to see a special screening of that classic Christmas movie, Batman Returns. But
Ah,
that didn't happen because of scheduling and whatnot. So I ended up not seeing it. So I was at home and I thought, okay, what's something I haven't seen yet, but I wanted to? And so I went on to Max and I thought, hey, here's that new Beetlejuice movie. And I started watching it. I got about 20 minutes in. I was like, oh my God, this is so boring. I was so disappointed. I mean,
no.
I'm gonna make a point of finishing, but it is so dull. And the thing is, I can't remember the author or the writer's name. It's Miller and Goff. I think they like were really big in the 90s, like 90s, early aughts. And I was just surprised at how uninteresting the story is. And yeah, I think I saw a comment online, maybe like right after it came out, and someone said, "Yeah, I went to see this. I didn't laugh once." And I was thinking, "Oh, come on, that can't be true." I hate to say it. 20 minutes in, I hadn't laughed, and I think this was really just a big nostalgia cash grab type of thing. Like everyone's like, "Oh, got to have a sequel to Beetlejuice." I was in that camp. I love the first one, but this was just so disappointing. And I'm like I said, I'm 20 minutes in, and there's probably like another hour and a half to go, and I'm gonna force myself to finish it. But I was just really surprised at how I don't know, uninteresting and how boring it was for me.
You should do another review once you finished it
I probably should.
because I really liked it.
Okay. Okay.
I would give it like a strong seven.
Oh, well,
I
okay.
ended
A
up
7 out of 10. That's
well for me anything over a six I like.
okay.
So maybe
Okay.
in other people's court that would be like my seven would be like an eight to other people. I don't know.
Okay.
I found it. I do know what you're talking about with the first 20 minutes is kind of like finding its feet.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
once it gets going, I ended up my whole family really ended up liking it.
Okay. Okay.
Didn't love it.
I'm willing to, to endure and push forward through it and see how it goes. Hopefully, fingers crossed that it does improve.
At least your expectations will be low.
That's right. It's usually up here, but it sounds like down there.
Right.
And Brian, what about you on the reading and or watching front?
Okay. I made a list because
Oh,
I
wow.
knew this was
Cool.
coming.
I
I'm
love a
very familiar
prepared
with the show.
guest.
So I watched a movie that came out earlier this year that I hadn't seen. I finally sat down and watched it. It was Long Legs with
Oh,
Nicolas
okay.
Cage. Oh my God, Cage was unrecognizable. Like if
Okay.
his name hadn't been in the credit and I had known, I would not have recognized that as him. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's a basically it's similar to Silence of the Lambs in that it follows a young female FBI agent tracking down a killer, and her superiors don't really take her that seriously. It's very similar in that vein, but it goes a bit more supernatural,
Hmm.
devil worship in the kind of the '80s kind of thing, and a little psychic stuff in there. And Nicolas Cage is outstanding in it. Have you seen it?
I have not. I'm not really the horror kind of guy.
I
So
would
I mean,
say
but I've heard a lot of people talk about it. I do have one question though. I
yes.
think a lot of people really liked it. I hope I'm not confusing this with another movie. Some people said like the last 10 minutes or so, it just kind of it goes all crazy or something happens that it just doesn't mesh
Yeah,
with the rest of it.
I would say the last 5 minutes,
5 minutes.
it
Okay.
kind of breaks its own rules in the
Mm,
sense of that the main character does the things or doesn't do a thing that she should have naturally been wanting to do. I don't want to give anything away, but
sure,
it
sure.
really kind of threw me off, and I was like, why would that happen? And but I didn't kill the whole movie for me. It was more like, I wish they had done that differently. But overall, it was phenomenal.
Okay.
Like Cage blew my mind. I was not expecting that.
Got it. Okay,
Uh,
back
for
to the
for
list.
for TV,
TV.
my wife and I we got Stars recently because we want to watch Outlander, and so what kind of shows does Stars have? And they have a show called The Serpent Queen, which is
Okay.
it's a historical drama, fictional, all about Catherine de Medici of the Queen of France, and from like I
Okay.
think the 1700s. This thing is bonkers. It's done with a sort of a punk rock aesthetic. I mean, it's all the costumes are accurate, everything's accurate, but the way it's done and the way they talk and the way they act is got a dark comic edge to it. Sort of like Bridgerton meets Downton Abbey. I don't know. It's just very cool. I mean, even in the opening credit, it's just the queen walking to her throne, but it's got a sort of death metal soundtrack, and you're like, oh, I'm in for something different with this show. And it's
Okay.
got 2 seasons, and we mowed through them recently, and then loved it. Loved everything about it.
The Serpent Queen on Stars. Okay.
Yeah, it reminded me of like The Great on Hulu,
Mm-hmm.
and it's in that similar vein where it's historical, but they take artistic license with a lot of things.
Got it. Got it. Interesting stuff. Okay. Well, I was going to say a wide variety of opinions among two people and three projects.
Right?
Okay. All right. So, Brian, as we established at the beginning of the show, so this episode is really about writers getting ready for 2025. As we discussed before we started, I was writing down some things that we could discuss. Kind of, we have strategies,
Great.
approaches, contests, queries, projects, and because you as a brand strategist, you have, building your brand and networking, and these are great things. So, I mean, uh, I was going to say, you can start things off, which would take your pick from that list.
Oh man. So I'm gonna say, with the industry being as absolute chaotic as things are right now, we don't know which way's up. Studios are shrinking. Streamers are cutting seasons short, and everything seems like it's just on a downward spiral. But as writers, I think we need to seize the day on things we can control. We can control the quality of our work. We can control who we query. We can control getting ourselves out into networking rooms, whether it's online or in person. We can control how we brand ourselves online and build a reputation. Branding is all about reputation. So if you're online, you have a presence on like LinkedIn, for example, or something else where you are offering advice or engaging with a community, those are things you can control, and people will notice and people will take notice of you, and they will start coming to you for uh, maybe even gigs, open writing assignments, or advice or consultations. It all snowballs, and I'm a firm believer in screenwriters, authors needing to have a brand, build a brand.
Okay, so what would you say is maybe the best way that a writer can determine what their brand is? Because I've heard this from a lot of writers, like, they want to know what my brand is. Like, how should I know? I mean, I like to write everything, and I think it's up to the writer to kind of figure out how can you fine tune that? How can you, literally put a label on that?
It's so true. And you hear the buzzword on the internet for any kind of entrepreneur nowadays is niche down. Find your niche and niche down. And a lot of people are still like, well, what does that even mean? It really means just pick something specific that you can speak to. Let's say you are a writer who likes to write a bit of everything. I would say take your strongest two or three pieces and what is the through line on those? What is your, if they could be randomly different, but there could be like an element of thriller that appeals to all of them. There could be a little edge of comedy, even though like let's see you've got a horror, a western, and a sci-fi, but there's a
Hmm.
comic element that goes in all of them. You could say, well, I'm a comedic writer focusing on dark characters, blah blah blah, that kind of thing. You just find a way to set yourself apart. And I will say this too: when we're starting out, when we're new writers coming to the industry, and we get, let's say, we get representation or we get writing gigs, it's easier to sell us if we have just like one genre we can speak to. Like if
Hmm.
you can say, um, you're the sci-fi guy, or you are the drama guy, or what, that kind of thing. It's much easier for an agent or manager to sell you if they can position you that way.
What about if a writer says, "Well, you know what? I like to write, I like to write sci-fi, I like to write horror, I like to write, romantic comedy," but their protagonist in all of those is almost the same kind of character. Like, I like to write about, strong female protagonists who, don't take any lip from anybody type of thing, or that kind of thing. Like, I write a specific kind of character, it doesn't really matter on the genre.
I think that's actually an excellent way, because then you can speak to that as a strength. Like, I write flawed characters, who, I make them bleed, but they'll crack one-liners as they're mowing down enemies, or whatever you want to say. But if you can speak to that, like, I write this kind of character a lot, that even helps. So you can even add that as a layer in. You say, I write dark science fiction and horror with characters who blah 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 blah, and that kind of, it just sort of sets, it niches down even more and deeper, so that you will be spotted, you will be found by the right client.
Okay, that works. That works really well. You had touched briefly on queries, so let's talk about that just for a little bit. So, um, queries are pretty much a crapshoot. That I have seen so many people saying that they still send out queries, but they're very selective about it. And unfortunately, some people still take the shotgun approach. So I'm just gonna like copy paste address after address. Are queries still worth it in your opinion?
In my opinion, what I've seen is targeted queries are effective. They can be effective. Now, I know people who do like just like a shotgun scattergun approach, where they're sending out 200 in a month or whatever. I'm like, that, you know, but God bless them. They'll get one or two hits off of it somehow.
Hmm.
But I think, it shows respect to the person you're querying if you know their name, know a bit about what they've done, and you mention it. Hey, I admire your work, what you did with this project, and I think I would be in a good fit for your roster or whatever. Um, and keep the letter short, keep them respectful, and we all know the rules. Follow up 6 weeks later, yada yada.
Hmm.
But I do think querying can be effective, and it especially helps if you have been building professional relationships on LinkedIn. You can be connected with somebody, have a couple of conversations, and if you feel they are a good fit for your style of writing, I would say by all means send them a query.
Okay, and also I want to point out that I tell this to newer writers as well that definitely get yourself a subscription to IMDb Pro. I think it used to be $100. Now I think it's like 150.
Yep.
It's a little pricey, but still worth it. And um, I don't know how accurate a lot of the information is still, because when I was using it on a regular basis to send out queries, that I would do my homework and try to find an email address or try kind of hypothesize, okay, this is what the email address is overall for this management firm. So I'm
Yes.
going to apply that formula to the person I'm sending to. And sometimes you get it goes through. Sometimes you get bounces back saying no such email exists. And sometimes you get one say we don't accept unsolicited queries.
Yeah.
So
Even
I think IMDb Pro getting a subscription. I've heard so many people recommend it, and again, it's not 100% accurate, but it's still one of your best bets. It's one of the best tools to have in your arsenal.
I completely agree. Even though it's 149 for a year, it's worth it. If you break that down to monthly, it's not that expensive. But it will, even though it's not always accurate because it does need to be updated manually most of the time, it still gets you further. It'll get you further along the road if you're trying to connect with a big name producer, big name actor, studio, whatever. It gets you closer.
Hmm. You had talked about LinkedIn as a great way to network. I totally agree with that because that's definitely the professional way to do it. But what about via social media? People connecting on Twitter. Now they're doing it on Blue Sky.
Mhm.
What if maybe like a writer or a director or producer that you really admire, you like their work a lot, and you follow them? What would be a good strategy for trying to connect with them, but also not being creepy about
Right.
it?
Yeah, just be normal. Just be a regular person. If you are connected on, let's say X or Blue Sky, and you follow them, they may or may not follow you back. It just depends. But you can always see, because you're following them, you can see what they post, and it's cool to make a couple likes, a couple comments here and there. Just don't be pushy, and develop a genuine, if you can, a genuine relationship. And then maybe for me, I would go, depending on how often we connect, but maybe 4 to 6 months before I would even consider querying.
Sure.
Just depends on how often we speak. And sometimes the conversation right out the gate is that they're open to people submitting. So I'm like, wow, shit, all right. So it just depends on who it is. Just feel each opportunity out and don't be weird.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I've seen that there are a couple of like big name managers who still have accounts on Twitter. I'm not calling it the other thing.
Right.
But and so I'm sure that they are bombarded not just with emails but with tweets or whatever they call it on Blue Sky that if someone sees, oh, this manager at Bellevue or this person at insert name a big agency here, oh, they tweeted, I'm going to follow them and I'm going to try to connect with them and we're going to become best buds. And I think a lot of people they're in too much of a rush
Mhm.
to really take the time to establish that professional relationship, which really is key because you want to display to that person, I take this seriously, and I'm also not going to just constantly come at you and say, hey, you read my stuff, or hey, will you sign me, or can I send you a query? You just have to really be patient, and unfortunately, that's how it works.
And that's the key word, patience, because as writers, we're trying to make it, we're trying to up level, we're trying to make a living at this. And so our patience is tough to come by. You want to get shit going, you want to get going on it. But yeah, it shows such a level of professionalism if you show restraint and hold back and just talk with the person, just and chit chat and get their feel. Yeah, ask things about them, ask what they feel about the industry, what they feel about the state of things in the industry, and you're seeking their knowledge, and you things that you genuinely want to know. I mean, I'd never want a person to be fake. Be real, really ask
Hmm.
these questions and really develop a relationship. It could end up becoming an actual, real friendship,
Hmm.
that you will be very valuable to you, in just as a personal level.
You know what I've also found is effective is asking people things that have nothing to do with what they do for a living.
Mhm.
You've connected with a manager. That's fantastic. That's a great obstacle to overcome. But you don't want all of your emails or all of your tweets or whatever's to be about the business. You could
True.
say, oh, like I see you're in LA, like can you recommend a good sushi place? Or like what's your favorite place to go for pizza at like, at 11 o'clock on a Friday night? And just kind of like show like I'm interested in you as a person and also everybody likes to eat so you
Yeah.
got to have an opinion about food.
And if they post about their hobbies, or if a hobby is in their profile, oh, I see you like to surf. I used to surf down in Huntington, blah blah blah. That kind of, find connections. They're
Hmm.
just people, just like us.
I know that's so hard for
It's
people to
weird,
accept.
right? Yeah.
Industry
But
professionals, they're just like us.
I do find on LinkedIn, bigger names like that are much more open to connect, because there's that assumption of professionalism on LinkedIn. I know it's changed a lot, but it's still got that. I mean, I'd say when I reach out to a bigger name, I'd say 75, 80% of the time they will accept the follow and even respond in messages. Hey, how's it going? Nice to meet you. Thanks for connecting.
Yeah, that's something that started doing that in the beginning, and I still do it to this day. Is that when somebody connects with me and it's someone I'm genuinely interested in knowing about, I'll just say, "Thanks for connecting. I hope all your current writing projects are coming along nicely." And
Keep it, yeah.
sometimes they respond like, "Thanks, you too," or "Hey, what's going on with you?" And I've found, I think this has just been a thing. It's taken me time to learn this and realize this is that if you come across as desperate, nobody's going to want to really deal with you. But if you come
Yeah.
across, I don't want to say blasé or nonchalant, just kind of like, I'm just playing it cool. Hey, it's great to meet you. That's
Mhm.
fantastic. But also if you make an impression in a positive way, just kind of like, I'm really enjoying this writing thing.
Mm.
And
Right.
I think they're more likely to react to that. Not necessarily reach out, but that they'll remember that, oh, this Brian guy, he wasn't really, he wasn't all in my face about, trying to get read or trying to get repped. He was just kind of like, he had a couple of fun things to say, and oh, he talked about this thing that he did over the weekend, type of thing. That if you make an impression as a person, not just I'm a writer and I want you to help me, that I think it's you have a better chance of at least getting noticed.
And unfortunately, I see that mistake happen over and over and time again, where you'll connect with somebody and right away they're like dumping their script in your inbox, or you're like,
Oh,
I don't
I've been
even
there
know
so many
you.
times.
Yeah, it's like, come on,
Hey,
be professional.
oh, hey, hi, Paul. Thanks for connecting. Will you read my script? Will you donate to my Kickstarter? Will you? It's like,
Yes,
I like to say, just, geez, buy me a drink first.
right.
Okay, so that is about networking and building one's brand and queries. Let's talk about some would call it that bane of the writer's existence, the contest.
Ah, yes, I have opinions.
Okay. Well, as we were discussing before we started, I used to enter a lot of contests, but I've drastically cut back over time. Part of it is because diminishing returns, but also because a lot of contests, they make promises, and yeah, you get a nice certificate or laurels you can print out and put on your wall. That's great. Maybe you get a little cash or some screenwriting software. But a lot of writers, myself included, I enter contests. Is this going to help me advance my career? Is this going to like open some doors for me? So as a result of that, I've really decided that I'm just going to focus on the big ones. I'm going to go for Page and
Mhm.
Austin, possibly the Nickel. But as we were also discussing, my stuff really isn't what the Nickel's interested in. They're not interested in fun popcorn movies.
Same, same. Yeah, I mean, there was a time I think back in like the 90s, 2000s where a contest win or even a placement could get you in a room. It could get you a meeting or
Hmm.
two. And of course, the cash was nice. But now it's so saturated, and most contests don't mean anything. And when you ask, if you ask a dozen managers or agents if they if a contest means anything, or if they utilize a contest when they're looking for somebody, I would say almost all of them would say no, that
Hmm.
they don't bother. I've actually asked many managers, many agents, if they have discovered people via contest, and almost all of them said no, never. But once in a while, one will say, yes, I have found somebody via contest. But by and large, they don't care. So I'm
Okay.
like, well, I'm not going to spend all that money on these things except for the big ones. Like I would be willing to go, you the same ones you mentioned, Paige, Austin, maybe Nickel if I had something that I think the Academy would be interested in, drama kind of thing. But they're not gonna like my sci-fi.
Yeah.
I mean,
You also
I did
you
get
mentioned it. You mentioned another one as
oh,
Big Break,
Final
Final
Draft,
Draft, Final
Final Draft,
Draft.
Big Break. Yeah, that's a pretty good one too. Other than that, I really wouldn't focus on any other contests.
Yeah, because I mean, I see it on social media so often. I mean, I'm thrilled for these writers and the success that they get.
Yeah,
But my script was a finalist at the the Des Moines Film Festival. It's like, okay, yeah, that's great. I'm happy for you. But apart from the what $50 you spent to enter it, what does that get you?
and I don't want to take away from a person's victories in those, because
Exactly.
it
Yeah.
feels good when you get recognized. It feels very validating, and it is motivating to keep going and keep pushing. So I don't want to take that away. I just meant if you are thinking a contest is going to further your career in a very direct, literal way, it's not going to. But you can rack up those wins, that increases the dopamine, increases your motivation, increases your ambition, and can make you a better writer.
Yeah, and also that, I mean, some writers actually enter contests because of the notes that they get.
Mhm.
I usually do not pay the extra like $100 to get notes, and
Same.
some of the contests that I have received notes on, the notes were almost hit and miss. I was almost like 50-50. These are good notes. 50, did this writer read the script that I sent in?
Exactly. Yes, I agree.
And so I mean I think a couple of years ago Austin had this terrible they had I think they got like 14,000 scripts entered like total of TV and film, and then the notes that people were getting back were just awful. I mean,
cookie cutter.
I did not enter it that year, but I just remember people saying, you know, these notes were written by someone who's not familiar with how screenwriting works or what a TV script is supposed to look like. And I was just thinking, I know they're, you know, the contests are desperate for readers, but there has to be a way to vet them. And I guess, you know, that's another chance you take when you
Yeah,
enter a contest that you think, oh, you know, my script, you know, I've had professional feedback on it, I polished it, it shines like a diamond, and you send it in, you don't even make quarterfinals because you know, the reader had a bad day, or the
right.
reader's like, I don't really like sci-fi.
It's so subjective. You just don't know.
Okay, so I think contest is pretty much ask yourself, what do you want to get out of the contest that
Mhm.
you're planning to enter? Is it about a cash prize? Is it about software? Do you just want to see how your script fares against, you know, the rest of the world?
Mhm.
Or if you want to really like, shoot big, but you know, go for the bigs, like how does it compare to 5,000 other scripts? I think the Nickel, I'm really glad they did this. I wish other contests would do it. They started limiting it to 5,500 entries
Yep. And
because
one
I,
script per person.
yeah, one script per person, which I think is fantastic because I mean, I'm thrilled for people who have like 10 or 12 scripts to their name, but you know, I think I'm one of those writers like if I'm going to enter a contest, I'm entering one script.
Same. I had two scripts that I was rotating between contests, and one because that was the one, that was the big one.
Yeah.
But the other one was more like, let's see how this fares because I'm still kind of honing it.
hmm Yeah, so I think just I guess for me it's like pick the script that I think I'm the most proud of at the time because
Mhm.
I have a couple of scripts I'm crazy about, but I don't want to I can't afford to enter so many contests or enter several
Right.
scripts in a contest. You know, it is also a financial thing. And don't it's like a lottery ticket. You know, you
Yep.
enter it hoping you're going to win, and if you advance a little bit, you know, you get that scratcher, you get 25 bucks back. You know, that's a win. Making quarterfinals, that's still a
Right.
win.
I mean, honestly, what I started doing is taking the budget that I had set aside for contests and using it for a script consultant that I valued and I trusted.
hmm
And I feel that was money well spent.
Yeah, and so this is kind of leading into another thing that I wanted to talk about is related projects. Because if I took a lot of the money that I'd spent on contests over the years, and if I just focused it on a, you know, or four contests, what could I do with that money that I could put it towards getting a script consultant done or getting some professional notes? But I've also I kind of fell off on it this year. I'm really hoping to get back on that proverbial horse next year is that I have a short film that I want to make. And I'm looking to start a crowdfunding. I keep pushing it back. So hopefully is that I'll be able to, you know, get things going after the new year. And that I have to do the crowdfunding and also have to start kind of like figuring out the budget. And I have a director. And it's just about this is something I'm really excited about. And that I think a lot of writers, I don't know, are they reluctant to, yeah, branch out? Because I think it helps that if you want to try and make movies or write scripts, you know, try and make one yourself. It's not going to be good in the beginning, but at least you know you give yourself the experience so you know what it's like to the whole process of putting a short together.
I am a big fan of that, where a writer dives into a related topic. Where if a writer takes an acting class, if a writer makes a short film, if a writer takes their script and brings on a team to do a comic book version of the
hmm
script, something like that. Because if it does something to your brain, it creates new neural paths, and I think it just makes you a better writer, especially if you make a film or if you act and do some acting classes, because you will learn real quick what does not need to be in a script.
I never even thought about it that way. But you know, but now that you mention it, because when I wrote this short, that I kind of wrote it from a producer's point of view. I was writing it with the mindset, how could I make this for as inexpensively as possible?
Yep.
Okay, you know, a bare bones set, just you know, two rooms in a house, three or four characters in the whole thing, and minimal effects overall.
Yeah.
You were talking about also former guest of the show, Chris Mancini of White Cat Entertainment. He was a stand-up comedian, then he was a screenwriter, and he had a couple of things produced, but now he's really into writing these graphic novels of his, and
Yeah.
and so he's really excited about it, and we've had him on before to talk about it, and it's I think kind of branching out that it's great to write something, but then make it yourself. It's a short film or a graphic novel or even just a book. You're a prime example of that. Is that you can hold up this book and say, I wrote this. And you can, and it's your material, and you can start marketing it. That this is my brand. This is what I write. And so it's a lot of writers like, oh, screenwriting. That's the key to success. But not realizing, the key word here is writer. And
Yep.
so you can write so many things and have so many end results. So I think that's something a lot of people hopefully take into consideration.
And there's another angle to all this too. And your previous guest, James Moore, touched on it last week in that there's a strategy to this because if you have a screenplay and then you adapt it to a novel or a graphic novel or a short film you film yourself, it creates intellectual property. It creates IP that you own. And like he said, it gives you leverage if the script gets sold. And then it means more money for you, it means more ownership for you. It just puts you in the best position possible if you have existing IP, like for example, a tangible book you can
Hmm.
slap down on the table and like, look, here's this book. Like it helps. It really helps. Plus, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and also that representatives are constantly bombarded with material. Like, oh, read my screenplay, and you have to have maybe like a one-page synopsis. But if you can hand them a short film that's 5 or 10 minutes long, or a graphic novel, a lot easier to read. A comic book, even easier to read, or a book
Yes.
like here's the first chapter. And here's some reviews that it got on Amazon or a professional critique service type of thing. That I think that works to not only expand your brand, but also is a better example of this. This is the kind of stuff that I write, and here's something for you. It's easy to digest.
Mm-hmm. And it makes it so let's say a representative you give them the graphic novel. Let's just say it's a graphic novel of your screenplay. They can take that and go to studios and to production companies and say and pitch your project and say, this is what my guy does. Take a look at this. And it's something that they can hold in their hands. It's much more memorable.
Yeah, very, very much so. I mean, that's something I'm very fortunate that I've had a lot of people who've read my stuff. They say that yes, it's a screenplay, but it's a very visual screenplay that they can easily, see the story taking place in their head while they're reading it,
I
and just
agree.
do be, of course, the dream, have it up on the big screen. But if someone says, "Hey, do you want to make this into a graphic novel?" I'm not going to say, "No, no, I'm only film."
Yeah.
I would say, "Yeah, let's talk. If you got a good artist, that's a key of it." So let's these are two challenging words to kind of consider. So strategies and approaches. I think we've kind of touched on both of those, but I think that it's about not just getting your material done, but also that I heard this from so many different people, writers and people in the industry, that be realistic about your goals, that don't go into a project thinking that I'm gonna crank this thing out in a couple of weeks and it's gonna sell. That you need to, again, you've said this before, patience is the key
Mhm.
word. That you need to take the time to really develop that project, really hone your craft, and really put it all on display so that it's as good as it can possibly be. And don't be in a rush to get it done.
And I would even add a wrinkle to this that every writer has their method and they write at varying speeds. And so a writer should never compare themselves and what they're doing to someone else. Let's say a friend of theirs who's cranking out 10 scripts a year. You
Hmm.
cannot compare yourself because, yeah, they're cranking out a lot of scripts, but they might be garbage. Whereas you're cranking out one and it's amazing or it's garbage too. I don't know, it depends. But um, as writers, we tend to like really get in our heads when we see other people doing different things. And I would say even the patience level and the speed level varies on a single project. What brought it to my mind is I take a long time to outline a
Hmm.
project. And because I'm one of these guys where I need to know exactly what's going on. I leave room for flexibility along the way, but I really need to know A to Z. And once that's done, I'll write the script very fast. The first
Hmm.
draft is super fast, and then I put it down for a minute, and then the patience and slowing down comes in, and then I start taking whacks at it with a sledgehammer, and then eventually a scalpel. But
Sure,
yeah. So
sure.
like even a project on a single project, that you could go slow and then fast and slow and it just depends on how a writer does it.
Yeah, I think because I always use the running analogy, like everybody runs at their own pace, and there are always going to be people who cross the finish line way ahead of you, and there are always going to be people who are way in the back of the pack. So you can't compare yourself to either of those people. I mean, I see this all the time. I see writers I know, especially on social media. Here's the first page of the new thing that I'm working on. I'm thinking I'm still outlining this one, but I think probably because I'm so focused on wanting to do a really good job, and I know there's going to be so many changes along the way, but
Mm-hmm.
I think I want to really work on establishing that foundation for the whole story.
Right.
That it may totally change, three or four drafts in, but I want to really, like you said, I outline like crazy before I start on pages, and so I want to make sure that at that time, that version of the outline is as rock solid as I think it can be.
Exactly.
And sometimes it takes longer than I wanted to, but I've also through the years of experience of doing this that I accept that and I'm okay with it. And I can look at other people like, I wrote four scripts this year. I'm like, I did the outline for one.
Well, and another comment I would like to make about outlining, because I know we have a lot of outliners, planners, and versus pantsers.
Hmm.
And I think it's wonderful if you could be a pantser and just haul ass and get it done. And I think you'll probably agree with me. If you are going to be a professional in this industry, in the film industry, you will be expected to outline 100% of the time, no ifs, ands, or buts. They will expect you to outline your work. So for me, it's like, why not hone it and get good at it now?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm also I have to outline. I'm amazed at writers who are pantsers because they always say like I let the characters dictate what's going to happen. I'm thinking I just can't do that.
Me
I
either.
have to know where they're going to be going.
And otherwise, I'll write myself into a corner every time.
Yeah, or you would think, wait, okay, this sounds really familiar. Oh my God, it's like that movie I just saw, from 2 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm the same way. So yeah, I do envy people who can just go and successfully create something from not outlining. But if they want to be in the business, they will have to outline eventually.
Yeah. And I think this has always worked for me before that once I have the outline, I think it's pretty solid and I'm ready to start on pages, that I pace myself with it. I think, okay, I'm going to try to do at least 3 pages today. If I do any more, that's great. If I only do one and a half or two, that's still okay. Maybe I can make up the difference tomorrow, but I'm not going to beat myself up for not achieving a goal. And if I surpass that goal for the day, I'm like, hey, yay me.
Bonus.
Yeah, exactly.
You and I share that philosophy, and a lot of writers don't accept it and don't do it but like, there's no reason to beat yourself up. Oh my God, I didn't hit 3,000 words today. I suck. No, give yourself grace because life happens.
Hmm.
So do the best you can, and if you don't get the words in that day, fine. You can make them up later in the week or the next week. It's not going to destroy your work.
And also that say you complete those 3 pages for that day. If you want to keep going, go ahead. But if you get the three
Mhm.
pages done, hey, I can stop for now. I can stop for today. I achieved that goal, and I can go play video games, or I
And it's
can go.
satisfying,
Yeah, I can go take the dog for a walk now, or that sort of thing.
right?
That is a great strategy, and it's great to see writers who enjoy the process because so often I'm one of those like sometimes I'll put like this first act or this scene one sequence is really being kind of tricky. I just got to kind of like focus on it. But I've also found that if I step away and I don't think about it, sometimes the idea will come to me or the solution will come to
Hmm.
me. And like this rewrite that
True.
I'm doing now that I had to figure out, okay, how do I get these characters out of here that uh it works within the context of the story. And I was like, okay, let me go back and see, is there a scene here? Is this gonna work? No, that's not gonna work. And so then I had to go and make dinner. So it's like I'm just I'm just, mixing stuff and chopping stuff. I'm thinking, wait, what if, dot, dot, dot. Oh my God, that's perfect. And so I just ran back into the office, wrote that down, and then went back and finished making dinner.
It's so true. Once our minds kind of get off the subject, the answers just bubble up sometimes.
Yeah, I'm really happy with what I suddenly came up with when I wasn't trying to come up with it.
Isn't that great?
It's wonderful. It's wonderful. Okay, Brian, let's start to wrap things up. I mean, is there one thing that I guess you want writers, creatives to kind of take into consideration as they start things off for the new year? Is there like something like, be good to yourself. Don't stress about it so much.
Well, I mean, there's so much. I mean, we could go on for hours on this,
Yeah.
really. But I would say going into the new year, we're all going to make plans. Do your plans, be realistic. I do this. I have my realistic goals, and then I have my pipe dream goals that if I get to them, amazing. And I would say also be flexible because stuff happens and you might get a better idea and want to bump something out of the way. And just be flexible in that and don't go, oh, I have to stick, don't be rigid. Don't be, I have to stick to this thing. If something else comes along, be fluid and be flexible. And then the third one, self-care.
Mm.
Don't get yourself so stressed out and overworked that it becomes, a detriment to your health or becomes no fun. We do this because we love it. So make sure you still
Yeah.
love it.
And it's okay if you don't write that day.
Exactly.
Because don't, as you said, don't beat yourself up over this.
Yeah, life
That
happens.
the work will always be there, and
Mhm.
if you like doing it, that you'll be able to get to it tomorrow. Or as you said, life gets in the way. Sometimes you just don't have the time to write, or you're exhausted, or my kids are sick again, or oh my God, the fuel pump on the car went. I got to take it to the garage. You know,
It's not, all these things. Yeah,
And so just take advantage of that, or if you want to take a little notebook with you, or you've got your phone with you while you're waiting for the mechanic to fix your car, just jot down a couple of ideas. You don't have to crank out a couple of thousand words. Just here's something I can maybe I can tuck away and use it up later.
exactly. Exactly.
Okay. Well, these are some great plans, and we certainly hope a lot of writers take them into consideration as we head into 2025. We want everybody to achieve all their goals. We're hoping for the best. Brian Fitzpatrick, where can people find out more about you and the special deals that you've got going on? Because again, this is right at the end of 2024.
Right. Okay, here we go. Uh, so if you want to connect with me on social media, I am on pretty much literally every platform. I engage on everything. I check. I mean, I mean, I don't want to list the list, but I mean everything. If you look for at the at symbol author Brian Fitzpatrick, that's what I am on everything. Now, I do offer my books are on Amazon. I have the Metcraft sci-fi action series of novels. The first book, Amazon has a discount on it right now. It's normally 15.95. I think it's like 11 and change right now. So that's kind of a cool special that I didn't expect. And now over the summer, I did teach a masterclass on author branding, marketing, and networking. And I converted that masterclass into a downloadable self-paced course called The Author's Edge. And that is on my store. And normally it's 247, but for the end of the year special, all the way till January 31st, or no, January 3rd, January 1st,
December 31st, oh, January
December
1st.
31st, January
Okay.
1st, it is going to be down to $77. And I have a mini course on just networking, just like laser focus on networking on how to conquer any room because we as writers we're usually terrible and that kind of stuff. So I spill out ways that I myself use to overcome my shyness and introvertness and walk into any room and talk to anybody. And that course is normally 47 and it is $17 right now. And
And
that
where
is
can
on my store.
people, and where is the link that people can find out about these courses?
That is at stan Brian Fitzpatrick.
Okay.
And I gave you the link. Hopefully, it'll be on somewhere in the YouTube thing, and also I have it on all of my socials. So if you go find me on Facebook, on LinkedIn, X, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, it's all there.
And as you said, it is author Brian Fitzpatrick on pretty much all the socials. So you
Correct.
can track him down, and also you can try him. And if you want to track him down via his book, those are the Metcraft books. Is it a trilogy now?
It is a trilogy with book 4 on the way and a short story that's on there, and also a tabletop role playing game coming. that I didn't that's kind of under wraps, but I'm working with a publisher who wants to create this game with me.
See, we're talking about projects that, you're the writer, but it doesn't have to be necessarily a TV show or a film. He's got books, he's got tabletop games, and who knows what's in store for Brian Fitzpatrick in 2025. He's probably taken his own course.
Yeah.
Brian, this has been
Right.
great, great stuff to talk about. And again, I really hope a lot of writers take a lot of this into consideration and just kind of apply it to their own selves as they head into 2025. And like, what can I accomplish this year?
And thanks so much for having me. It's always a pleasure being on your show. It's always a good time. We always have the great exchanges.
We do. We really do. Again, Brian Fitzpatrick and his author, Brian Fitzpatrick, on all the socials. And for his courses, it is stan.store/Brian Fitzpatrick. Viewers and listeners, if you enjoyed today's show, please hit like. Feel free to leave a comment and subscribe. Social media, still have my screenwriting blog, Maximum Z, at maximumz.blog. Still on Twitter for the time being, at least, at Maximum_Z. And this show is at Podcast, CWL. Also on Blue Sky and Instagram, I am at Pez Screenwriting, PEZ. Those are my initials. And I got books too. The Go Ahead and
You
Ask
do.
books on Amazon, the ones about screenwriting and pie, two very wonderful things. Like I said, that's Brian. I'm Paul. This has been the Creative Writing Life podcast. Thanks for listening. Stay safe, stay healthy, have a great, productive 2025. And most importantly, go write something.